Hey creatives, time for some full-on stamp carving today. Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, end of November, I went through some of my favourite stamp carving products ready for Carve December. And if you missed that video, there's a link in the cards and in the description below. So today I thought I would actually carve a full stamp for you. I've not really had a chance to do a lot of carving for the challenge, mainly because it is December and it's nuts. I'm just trying really hard to get a lot of deadlines finished before Christmas. But to make up for it, I thought I would do a full stamp. And I went ahead and I treated myself to a whole new set. So I've now got 2 carving sets. Because the first carving set I had didn't have that many knives, so it wasn't a big range. And I really needed something that would give me some fine detail. I also thought today that I would try out the only block that I mentioned last time in my video that I haven't yet used, so this is a complete experiment to see how it goes. But don't worry, as always I've got links to everything that I've used in the description below. So now that I have 2 carving blade holders, I've got one set up for fine detail and the other one set up for a sort of small to medium cut. And we'll see how that goes. So the block I'm going to cut, the one I mentioned, is Mastercut from EssDee, I don't know, still haven't got a clue how to pronounce that. I really should go and find out. And this is a thin soft cut material, and you pretty much cut in only one side, as one side is smooth and the other side has a slight grain to it, and that I believe is the back. So for this design I'm going to use inspiration from one of my recent drawings, and I've been sharing these over on Instagram. So do go over if you want to take a look at them. So I think I'm going to take some elements from this particular one here, because I quite like those concentric circles. They're quite fun. I will speed the whole process up, but feel free to use the speed tools on the video to slow it down if you want to see it in more detail. So again, for this stamp I'm just going to take the easiest way of transferring that idea onto my stamp surface, and that is just to draw it, and I'm just using a soft pencil or 2B pencil for this. But you can easily use pens, that's fine as well. Now if you did watch that last video, then you might have noticed that I am not the best carver in the world. I'll admit that. It's not something that I've practiced a lot, so this is why I'm doing it today, because I want to get better at it. You know, the more practice you do, the better you get at it. But the great thing about stamp carving is that it's pretty forgiving, bar making any major mistakes. Generally, whatever your carving skill level, you're going to produce a pretty cool stamp. Because even something simple, like that dots texture stamp that I carved in my last video, takes on its own personality and character with every bit you carve. So seriously, if you, like me, are a bit of a stamp carving beginner, don't worry, just keep carving. I see a lot of people get put off doing art because they think they're going to be rubbish at it, or they've tried it and the picture in their head just doesn't live up to the reality of what they produce. And believe me, I'm not immune to that at all. But you kind of have to accept the learning curve and keep going. Anyway, look, I think that might be a subject for a completely different video, so stay tuned. And talking about staying tuned, do feel free to become one of my subscribers if you're not a subscriber already. I bring out new art and craft tips, tricks, inspiration videos every week. And you guys know that I massively appreciate all of the likes, all of the comments you've been sharing with me. It's great to hear what you think and what you've been up to as well. So today, let me know if you've been doing any stamp carving and how you're getting on with it. Or if it's something that you're thinking of trying, I would love to hear. And if you haven't been doing any stamp carving, let me know what you have been doing. I'm not completely happy with my blade choice, so I'm going to try a few other ones and see how they go. But I end up back with my first choice anyway. So this master block is very easy to carve, so it's another great option if you can't get your hands on the Speedball Speedy Carve. But I think the Speedy Carve is still my favourite, as it is just so easy and soft to carve. And this one's not far off that. So as you can see in this carve, I am actually carving away the negative space, so anything that hasn't got a line on it, that's going to be removed. And I'm swapping between the two knife sizes, but I'm also using a craft knife as well. And the craft knife comes in really handy to do those awkward corners. So I'm using it for that, and I'm also using it for where there's right angles. So if I put a knife cut at the end of a carve line, it just makes it easier for the carving to stop at that line, and you get a cleaner cut. But I also used it for some of the really small areas, and I don't think I was quite as successful there at getting nice clean cuts, as you'll see when I ink this up and demonstrate it later. So I think I just need to practice that a little bit more. Stamp carving is obviously thirsty work, so time for a quick tea break. And yes, I do like my tea very strong, sort of spoon meltingly strong. So as I keep on carving, I kind of get into a rhythm of it, and there's something quite meditative about it and calming. So the kind of routine that I'm getting into is to first put down a cut line with the craft knife, then remove a small smooth slither with the detail knife, and swap to the larger knife to get rid of the larger areas. And that works particularly well in the very small areas. In some of the larger areas I just use the detail knife and then the larger knife. At this point I also decide to cut away some of that excess block, and I can save this and use it for some more stamp carving. And this particular block is just thin enough that I can actually cut it away with a pair of scissors, but if you've got a thicker block you're going to need to use your craft knife. So I was a little nervous about removing that negative space from those teardrops, but I actually found that the detail knife made it really easy to do this. And it just required me to be just a little bit controlled in how I use the knife. So a big thumbs up for the smaller knife, that's well worth getting. And initially I thought that the circles I would make them into line circles, but in the end I found that just a little bit too difficult, so I kept them as blocks and just removed the excess carve material from around each circle. And the easiest way of doing that was to make sure I moved the block as smoothly as I possibly could. And if you keep the knife quite still, you can get quite tight circles with a little bit of practice. So having carved most of the details in this stamp, it was a case of then using the craft knife to take off any excess carve that was still there. And this just speeds up the process a little bit more and gives you less area that you have to carve away. Okay, so the bit we've all been waiting for, most of it's carved away, and now I just want to see if I need to refine any bits. So I'm just going to ink it up and stamp it out. It's only really when you stamp it out that you can see how good a carve you've done, and what bits might need tidying up, and what bits you completely missed and you'll need to remove. And you know what? I'm actually pretty pleased with that. I think it looks okay. There's some bits that I might need to go over again and tidy up. I'll just do a little bit of tidying up here, and maybe a bit later when I've got some more time I will tidy up the rest. But as a whole, I think that looks pretty cool. I obviously still need to practice my smooth lines, but I like this. I think it looks alright. So another thing I'm just going to do is I'm going to stamp it again, but this time I'm going to bring the paper to the stamp itself. And that way, by pressing down on it, you'll see far easier if there's stuff that's very near to the surface that you might need to take off. And obviously when you've inked it up, it makes it a lot easier to see the stuff that can contact that ink pad. And you can either leave them for character or remove them. And one final tip for those of you who've been hardy enough to make it through to the end of the video as a special reward. If you want to use your carved stamp on an acrylic block, or perhaps you want to use it in your positioning tool like a MISTI, then it's very easy to do. All you need is a glue stick, and I've tried this with a lot of different glue sticks and it works. Add glue to the back of your stamp and stick it onto your acrylic block or into your MISTI, just as you would with any other stamp. And once you've finished and stamped out the image, Just wash the glue off of your block and off of the back of your stamp. And of course this tip works really well with your thinner carved materials like this Mastercut. I hope you enjoyed that video and picked up lots of tips and tricks for using in your own stamp carving projects. I'm kind of really interested to see what you do and what you come up with, so give me a shout. Right, well, I will be back in a few days' time with a brand new video, but in the meantime, don't forget that there's plenty to watch on my channel. So do go take a look, and here's a suggestion of a video that you might want to see. Enjoy your carving, and I will see you very soon. So thank you very much for joining me again, and I'll see you next time.